Kelsey Mitchell. Kelsey Mitchell re-signs with the Indiana Fever. So the best backcourt in the WNBA is back.
The best backcourt in the WNBA remains intact because Kelsey Mitchell is back, staying with the Indiana Fever and going back-to-back with that back.
Why is it that every time major news drops, it happens when no one is paying attention? This is huge. Kelsey Mitchell has officially resigned with the Indiana Fever, securing her place as a cornerstone of the franchise.
From the moment Kelsey Mitchell stepped on the floor at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, her time with the Indiana Fever has been memorable, impactful, and historic. Mitchell, she'll pull up. Here's a three. She's got it!
If you thought this move was predictable, think again. Mitchell had options. She was an unrestricted free agent, and some WNBA insiders even speculated that she might walk away, but nope, she's staying in Indiana, and the Fever just made a massive statement about their future. So what does this mean for the team, for Mitchell, and for the league? Let's talk about it.
Posted in 7 short years, Kelsey Mitchell has left an indelible mark on the franchise, the state of Indiana, and the entire WNBA.
All right, let's talk about it. Kelsey Mitchell is officially staying with the Indiana Fever, and if you've been following the WNBA, you know this is a massive deal. This isn't just about one player choosing to stay with a team. This is about what it means for the Fever, for the league, and for the future of women's basketball. Now, some people might say, well, this was expected, and Shaw was always a strong candidate to resign, but expected doesn't mean insignificant. The Fever locking her down is one of the biggest moves of the offseason, not because she was on the verge of leaving, but because of what her presence means for this team moving forward. Kelsey Mitchell has been with the Fever since 2018. She's been through the worst of it. She's seen coaching changes, roster turnover, missed playoff runs, and rebuild after rebuild. And through it all, she stayed consistent. She showed up, put in the work, and led the team in scoring season after season. Let's be real, how many players would stay committed to a team that hasn't been able to deliver a winning season for years, in an era where stars are constantly on the move looking for the best situation to chase a ring? Mitchell choosing to stay says a lot about her loyalty and belief in what the Fever are building. That belief wasn't always a given, though. A lot of people thought she might leave, and they had good reason to. Mitchell was an unrestricted free agent, meaning she had complete control over her future, unlike restricted free agents who have their options limited by their current team's ability to match offers. Mitchell could have walked away with no strings attached. Then there were the rumors. WNBA legend Candace Parker had predicted that Mitchell would leave, and we all remember what Sheryl Swoopes said.
People had mentioned Sheryl Swoopes, and it caused me to kind of chuckle a little bit, but it made me want to go back to some of the things Sheryl Swoopes said. And it's just kind of interesting seeing as Kelsey Mitchell, someone Sheryl Swoopes mentioned by name, has decided.
She suggested that there were Fever players who wanted out, implying that something was going on in that locker room that made players uncomfortable.
Boy, there's a lot of other going on that players are like, this ain't where I want to be.
Over there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some new shit going on around there.
It's a lot. Yeah. So you have players that are very significant on this Indiana Fever team that are like, I don't want to be here. This is where I want to be.
Yeah. Now listen, there's a lot of play more. What kind of
She made those comments. People immediately started connecting the dots. Was she talking about Mitchell? Was there tension behind the scenes? Clearly, that wasn't the case. If Kelsey Mitchell wanted out, she could have left. She didn't. That alone should put an end to all the speculation about the Fever's internal chemistry. Whatever issues might have existed, they weren't enough to push Mitchell away. That should tell you something about where this team is headed. Now let's get into why this move is so important. Mitchell isn't just another player. She's the foundation of the Fever offense. Last season, she averaged 19.2 points per game, shot 47% from the field, and knocked down 40% of her threes. Those numbers aren't just good, they're elite. You don't just replace a player like that. If Indiana had lost her, they would have had a massive hole to fill, one that they likely wouldn't have been able to patch up in free agency. And it's not just about her scoring. Mitchell has become one of the most reliable players in the league since 2018. She's played in 235 of a possible 240 games. That level of durability is Rare, especially in a league where injuries can derail seasons. Having a player who is consistently available is just as valuable as having a player who can put up big numbers. Then there's her fit with Caitlin Clark. This is where things get really interesting. When the Fever drafted Clark with a #1 overall pick, the entire landscape of the franchise changed. Suddenly this team went from being an afterthought to being must-at television. Clark's presence alone has put the Fever in the national spotlight, but she can't do it alone. She needs teammates who can play alongside her and maximize her strengths. And Kelsey Mitchell is a perfect backcourt partner for Clark. Why? Because her game complements Clark's skill set in every way possible. Clark is a playmaker, a passer, a shot creator, a player who thrives when she has the ball in her hands. Mitchell, on the other hand, is an elite off-ball scorer. She doesn't need to dominate possessions to be effective. She can catch and shoot, cut to the basket and space the floor in a way that makes life easier for her teammates. This is important because defenses are going to focus heavily on Clark. She's going to draw double teams. She's going to get the best defenders thrown at her, and teams are going to do everything they can to force the ball out of her hands. But when that happens, having a shooter like Mitchell on the perimeter means that defenses can't afford to collapse too much. If they do, they are going to get punished. Mitchell has also shown that she can thrive in fast-paced offenses, which is exactly the kind of system Clark is going to want to run. Clark loves to push the tempo, get out in transition, and create open shots for her teammates. Mitchell's ability to run the floor, spot up, and knock down shots in transition makes her an invaluable piece in this new-look Fever squad. Then there's Aaliyah Boston. We can't forget about her. Boston is the anchor of this team's front court. She was the Rookie of the Year last season. For a reason, she's a dominant post presence, a defensive force, and a player who can control the game from the inside. With Mitchell on the perimeter, Clark in point, and Boston in the paint, the Fever have the foundation of something special. The Fever aren't just keeping a star player by resigning Mitchell. They are building a legitimate core that can compete, but let's be real, they are not championship contenders just yet. There's still work to be done. They need a true power forward to complete the starting lineup. Right now they have a lot of versatile pieces, but they need that one final piece who can rebound, defend, and stretch the floor. They also need to build up their bench depth. One of the biggest differences between championship teams and playoff teams is depth. Right now Indiana has the stars, but they need to round out the roster with reliable role players who can come in and contribute when the starters need a break. That's why resigning Mitchell was so important. It's step one in the process. You can't build a championship team if you're constantly losing your best players. The Fever had to make sure they kept Mitchell in the fold before they could worry about adding other pieces. The reaction to this signing has been huge. Caitlin Clark's response to her, that says it all. There was never any doubt in her mind that Mitchell was coming back. Aaliyah Boston's reaction was just as enthusiastic, and even Fever GM Ember Cox made it clear how much this move meant for the organization. And it's not just the Fever who are reacting. The entire league is taking notice. The fact that the Indiana Pacers, an NBA team, acknowledged Mitchell's return speaks volumes. This is the kind of respect the Fever are starting to command. A year ago, would an NBA franchise have gone out of their way to celebrate a WNBA free agent signing? Probably not. That's how much things are changing. Mitchell's return solidifies Indiana as one of the most exciting teams in the WNBA heading into 2025. They are not just a team with young talent anymore. They are a team with stars who are staying put, a team with momentum, and a team that is 1 or 2 moves away from being a real contender. So what's next? Can the Fever make the leap into playoff contenders? Are they ready to take on the league's best teams? And most importantly, is this the beginning of something special in Indiana? Now that we've covered why Kelsey Mitchell resigning with the Fever is such a big deal, let's take a step back and look at what this move really means for the team, the league, and the Fever's long-term outlook. There's no denying that Indiana is now one of the most exciting teams in the WNBA. That might sound strange considering they haven't been serious contenders for years, but when you look at how this roster is shaping up, it's clear that things are changing. For years, the Fever were stuck in rebuilding mode. They had talent, but they lacked direction. The coaching situation was unstable. Roster turnover was constant, and every year seemed like another attempt to figure things out. But the moment they drafted Caitlin Clark, the script flipped. Suddenly, this wasn't just about developing young players and hoping for the best. It became about building a real contender, and keeping Kelsey Mitchell was the first major step in that process. Let's talk about Mitchell's impact in actual game scenarios. It's one thing to say she's a great player, but let's break down exactly how she makes this team better. First off, her scoring ability is elite. When we talk about WNBA guards who can get her from anywhere, Mitchell has to be in that conversation. Her ability to create her own shot is one of the best in the league. She's one of the most efficient scorers in the WNBA, especially for a high-volume Shooter, a lot of players can put up 18 to 20 points per game, but very few can do it on nearly 47% shooting from the field and 40% from three. That's insane efficiency for a perimeter player. She can hurt defenses in multiple ways. If you play her too tight, she can drive past you with her quick first step. If you give her space, she'll drill a three in your face. And if you try to trap her, she knows how to find the open teammate. That's where Caitlin Clark comes in. The beauty of this backcourt is that neither Mitchell nor Clark needs to be ball dominant to be effective. They are both capable of playing off ball, which means the Fever can run different offensive sets without becoming predictable. This is huge because one of the biggest struggles for young WNBA teams is offensive predictability. If a team only has one primary scorer, defenses can adjust quickly, but if you have two players who can both handle the ball, score, and create for others, the defense is in constant decision-making mode. Imagine a situation where Clark is handling the ball at the top of the key and Mitchell is relocating to the wing. The defense has two choices: stay locked in on Clark, which gives Mitchell an open look from three, send help to Mitchell, which frees up Clark to attack the rim, or find Aaliyah Boston inside. This kind of offensive versatility is what separates good teams from great ones, and let's not forget how this will impact Aaliyah Boston. Boston is already one of the best young post players in the WNBA, but she's never played alongside perimeter players as talented. Last season, she had to work harder than she should have for her touches. Defenses could collapse on her because the Fever didn't have enough outside shooting to make them pay. That's changing now with Mitchell and Clark on the perimeter. Teams can't just pack the paint against Boston anymore. That means more one-on-one opportunities, better spacing, and an overall easier time dominating in the post. This is where we see the real impact of Mitchell staying. It's not just about keeping a great player, it's about making the game easier for everyone else. Another underrated part of Mitchell's game is her ability to play in transition. The Fever weren't a great transition team last season, but that's going to change. Clark loves to push the tempo, and Mitchell is a perfect running mate for her. She's fast, she finishes well at the rim, and she can pull up from three without hesitation. This is the kind of team that could lead the league in fast break points if they fully commit to an up-tempo style, and that's the modern WNBA game: spacing, shooting, and speed. The Fever are positioning themselves to be one of the most dangerous offensive teams in the league, and it all starts with keeping their core intact. Now let's talk about what's next for this team, because while keeping Mitchell is massive, the Fever aren't done yet. If they want to take the next step, they need to address a few key areas. First and foremost, they need a power forward. Right now, their roster is balanced in a lot of ways, but they are missing that versatile four who can defend, rebound, and stretch the floor. A player like Sutta Sabali would have been perfect, but she's not available. Instead, the Fever will need to either make a trade or find a veteran free agent who fits the bill. Then there's a depth issue. The Fever's bench is still a work in progress. They need at least one more scoring threat off the bench, ideally a player who can come in and provide instant offense. Depth is what separates playoff teams from championship teams, and right now the Fever still need to round out their second unit. Another thing to watch is how Mitchell's game evolves alongside Clark. We know that'll be a great offensive duo, but how will they adjust to playing together? Will Mitchell take on more of a catch-and-shoot role? Will Clark be willing to play off ball more to allow Mitchell to create? These are the questions that will determine how far the Fever can go next season. One thing is clear, though: Indiana is no longer a rebuilding team. They're a team with real expectations now. They have a superstar rookie, an elite veteran, and a dominant post player. That's a championship core in the making. Social media has been on fire since the news dropped. Caitlin Clark's simple comment spoke volumes. There was never a doubt in her mind that Mitchell would stay. Aaliyah Boston couldn't contain her excitement either. Even the Fever's front office made it clear how much this move meant for the franchise, and here's the part that nobody's talking about: the Fever are starting to demand respect in a way they haven't in years. The fact that the Indiana Pacers publicly celebrated Mitchell's return shows how far this team has come. NBA teams don't just acknowledge WNBA signings unless they know it's a big deal. This is about more than just one player staying with her team. This is about the Fever officially becoming a team that people need to take seriously. They are not a rebuilding project anymore. They are not a team that's just happy to be here. They are a team that's looking to compete. So what's the ceiling for this team next season? Are they a championship contender yet? Probably not, but can they be a top 4 team in the league? Absolutely. And let's be honest, the WNBA is better when new teams are rising. For too long, the league has been dominated by the same handful of franchises. The Fever's rise gives us something fresh, exciting, and new to watch. So now all eyes are on Indiana. They have the talent, the momentum, and the fan support. The question is, can they take the next step with Kelsey Mitchell staying put? The answer is starting to look like yes, so there you have it. Kelsey Mitchell is staying in Indiana, and the Fever are looking stronger than ever. But what do you think? Is this the right move for Kelsey? Does this make the Fever a playoff lock? And what's next for this squad? Are they contenders or still a few pieces away? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update on the WNBA. More breaking news and analysis coming your way soon. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.